Okay. So in this subject, we start first with some basic concept of the electrostatics. That is some Coulomb's law, then electric field, flux, and all those things. We'll take the review of this. Okay. After that, we'll slowly enter into our main topic. So first, let us take the topic as electrostatics. So on this electrostatic, the first topic which
Sir, you are not properly audible, sir.
my voice is clear. Most probably on your side network issue is there. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so most probably some of you are facing some problem. Most probably it is regarding the network issue. So don't interrupt in the middle. If you are having some sound problem, I suppose to upload the video, you just go with that video. Okay. So on this electrostatics, we first start with Coulomb's law. So it is a little bit recap of all the things which you have already been covered in your schools.
Audible in our link.
Uh-huh.
Yes, sir.
I'm not audible. Hello. Hello. But some of you are facing some problem. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Now it is clear.
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Everyone in the separate links. Joy.
Yes, sir. You are clear.
Okay, fine. So Coulomb's law. So it relates the force acting between the 2 point charges, right? So we all know what is the theory regarding this Coulomb's law and what is the mathematical expression. I am not at all been going inside onto that. I am just writing the force acting between the 2 point charges, that is Q1 and Q2. So the force is the most generalized expression. The force is Q1 Q2 by 4 pi epsilon naught r square, right? R is the distance between the 2 point charges. Okay. Now if these point charges Q1 Q2 are located at points having some position vector, let us consider it is having some position vector, it is having r1 and r2. So I am just drawing something like this. Let us consider it is the origin, this is the point charge Q1 and this is the point charge Q2. Okay. So it is having some position vector compared to the origin. Let us consider it is R1. This is having R2. Okay. Now the force which is acting on Q2 due to Q1. So this force will acting something like this. Let us consider this force, that suppose a straight line. This separation is R12. The force which is acting on Q2, that is F of 12. Next, it may be possible that the force is acting on Q1 due to Q2, that is F of 21. Okay. So what we can write, let us consider which is acting on Q2 due to Q1, that is F of 12 is equals to Q1 Q2 by 4 pi epsilon naught r square, the unit vector, that is AR of 12, right? Right. So what is this R of 12? It's supposed to be the difference between R2 minus R1, right? And this unit vector, how we can write this unit vector AR12 is equals to vector by its magnitude, mod of R12. Okay, so more specifically in terms of this vector, what we can write? Therefore f of 12 is equals to q1 q2 by 4 pi epsilon naught r cube r of 12, or we can write q1 q2 by 4 pi epsilon naught r2 minus r1 whole cube by r2 minus r1. Clear? Next, the reverse one, the force on q1 due to q2, that is f of 21. It's supposed to be the reverse of this. How? Let us consider how we should have to write. That is q1 q2 by 4 pi epsilon naught r cube, that is the unit vector which is acting in the reverse direction, that is from q2 to q1, that is ar of 21. So what we can write? That the magnitude of this, but the direction is in the opposite direction, ar of 12, right? Or we can say that f of 21 is in the opposite direction of f of 12, since the unit vectors are in the opposite direction. ar of 21 is equals to minus ar of 12. So these are the basic concept. We also know that like charges repels each other, unlike charges attracts, all those things we know. And again, if there are more than two charges, then we are supposed to take the superposition of all the forces, right? So if there are more than 2 point charges, then we are supposed to take the superposition, something like that, q by 4 pi epsilon naught summation k is equals to 1 to n qk r minus rk by mod of r minus rk, it is mod whole cube, like this. Okay, so these are the some basic concepts. Next, we also know what is the expression of for the electric field. It is for the force, we are supposed to go with electric field, or we can say electric field intensity, or we can also say electric field strength. Okay, so what is this? It is the force per unit charge, force per unit charge, that is E is equals to F by Q. So if this Q is positive, that is Q is greater than 0, then the E is in the direction of the force, right? If it is less than 0, then it is in the opposite direction. What is the unit of this? Unit is Newton per coulomb or voltage per meter, or voltage per meter. Okay, these are the concepts. Again, same thing. If more than charges, more than 2 charges are coming into picture, then we are supposed to take the summation. So let us solve a basic problem to recap all the concepts. Let us go with a simple problem. A simple problem. Point charges one microcoulomb and minus 2 microcoulomb are located at 3, 2, minus 1 and minus 1, minus 1, 4 respectively. Calculate the electric force on a 10 nanocoulomb charge located at 0, 3, 1 and the electric field intensity at that point. Try to solve this one. Try to solve this problem. So 2 point charges are been given and the location has been specified. So we need to find out what is the electric force has been exerted on the point charge, that is 10 nanocoulomb, which is located at that location, and also we need to find out the electric field intensity at that point. So once we supposed to have the field, then easily we can able to find out the electric field, right? So here 2 charges are there which have been exerting some force on another charge, 10 nanocoulomb, right? Should I need to solve? So the solution for this, we are having more than 2 charges. So the expression which we supposed to use something like that, K is 1, 2, which has been exerting some force on some charge Q, R minus RK 4 pi epsilon naught R minus RK whole cube, right? So the force which has been exerting, that is on 10 nanocoulomb charge, that is given by Q. So Q by 4 pi epsilon naught. Then we supposed to have all the charges. I am just writing the expression for this, 10 to the power minus 3. The location is 0, 3, 1, 0, 3, 1 minus this charge, this location, that is 3, 2, minus 1 mod of 0, 3, 1. We can take first bracket also, no problem on this. 3, 2, minus 1 is the mod, that is 3, then minus 2 microcoulomb, that is 2 into 10 to the power minus 3. Then we supposed to have this one, sorry, this bracket is missing, 0, 3, 1 minus, this is the location, minus 1, minus 1, 4. Then we are having magnitude like this. Okay, so what is this Q? We supposed to have 10 to the power minus 3 into 10 into 10 to the this nanocoulomb, 10 to the power minus 9, 4 pi epsilon naught is having the value of 10 to the power minus 9 by 36 pi. We supposed to get a value something like this, minus 3, 1, it is minus plus 2. Then we supposed to have 9 plus 1 plus 4 whole to the power 3 by 2 minus 2 into 1 plus 4, that is 4, and it is minus 3. We are supposed to have 1 plus 16 plus 9 to the power 3 by 2. Okay, so all those things will get cancelled. We are supposed to have 9 into 10 to the power minus 2 minus 3, 1, 2, 14, it says root 14 plus minus 2 minus 8 6 26 root 26. Okay, so it comes as f is equals to minus of 6.507 ax minus 3.817 ay plus 7.506 az micronewton, millinewton, sorry, it is not micro, it is millinewton. Okay, so we need to find the electric field intensity at that point. So E is supposed to be F by Q, right? So we are having minus 6.507 comma minus 3.817 comma 7.506 into 10 to the power minus 3 millinewton by that Q is 10 nanocoulomb. 10 into 10 to the power minus 9. So it comes as minus 650.7 ax minus 381.7 ay plus 750.6 az. What is the unit? Unit is kilovolt per meter. Okay, so this is the concept. We are using our concept, we can easily solve all those things. So it is a little bit recap. Then if we are having some charges which are having the configuration other than point charges, some continuous charge distribution, electric field, I am just continuing within this, electric field due to continuous charge distributions. Okay, so we know that it is the point charge. Let us consider it is positive charge, it is the point charge. We have been going with the charge configuration. Next, if all the point charges are lying across a line, then we have been recognizing as line charge, right? It is given by rho L. If it is on a surface, if it is lying on any surface, then we have been recognizing this one as surface charge, that is rho S. Then if it is on any volume, any arbitrary volume is there, if it has been lying inside that, it is given by rho V, that is volume charge. Okay, so for line charge it is rho L coulomb per meter. For surface charge it is rho S coulomb per meter square. For volume charge it is rho V, it is coulomb per meter cube. Okay, so what will be the dq for this rho L? Differential charge distribution, or the total charge, from that we easily can find. That is, for this we can write as dq as rho L dl. So what will be this q? Q is line charge integration rho L dl, right? For this dq is rho S ds, so that q is surface charge integration rho S ds. For this volume it is dq rho V dv, so the q is volume integration rho V dv. We need to use all those properties, right? So for this q we easily can able to find what is the electric field intensity, right? So for this the electric field intensity can be written as line integration rho L dl by 4 pi epsilon naught r square ar. It is due to the line charge. For this we can write surface charge integration rho S ds by 4 pi epsilon naught r square ar for this E is volume charge integration rho v dv 4 pi epsilon naught r square AR. Fine. So these are the different charge configurations. So what is electric flux? What is electric flux? Let us consider we suppose to have two charges which are in the close vicinity to them. One is positive, one is negative. Okay. So what will happen for this positive charge? The line of forces, or you can say electric field lines, will go out, right, like this. But if it is close vicinity, it is having some negative or opposite charge, so obviously the electric field lines will terminate into the negative charges. It will start terminating, right? And if other than this termination from the positive charges, it may have that some electric field lines is been coming from other charges which is not at all this one, and this field lines also will have the termination on this negative charge, or this field lines will also visit some another trajectory and it will start terminating on this negative charge. Okay, so this is the condition when we supposed to have the two opposite charges within the close vicinity to them. So what will happen? All the electric field lines will start from the positive charge and start terminating in the negative charge. Okay, now if we are having an isolated positive charge, then we can say yes, all the field lines will supposed to originate from this positive charge. It's supposed to originate from this positive charge. And if we supposed to have the negative isolated charge, then all the field lines supposed to terminate to this negative charge, right? So what is the thing we supposed to understand is that for the positive charge, the field lines supposed to go out. It for this positive charge, it is acting as the source, and for this negative charge, all the field lines are comes in. So we can say that this negative charge is acting as a sink. So we can say electric flux originates from positive charge and ends with a negative charge. And in the absence of negative charge, electric flux or electric field lines supposed to terminate at infinity. It's supposed to terminate at infinity in the absence of negative charge. Okay. So we can say 1 coulomb of electric charge would result into 1 coulomb of electric flux. 1 coulomb of electric charge would results into 1 coulomb of electric flux. Or if there are some other charges, let us consider it is q coulomb, then it's supposed to have, or it's supposed to result into q coulomb of electric charge would result into q coulomb of electric flux. Okay, so we can say the flux calculations are equal to the charge calculation. So if we can able to take out the calculation of charge, how much charge consists in any enclosure, let us consider it may be any surface, it may be on any line, it may be on any volume. If we can able to do the calculation for the charges, then easily we can able to do the calculation for the flux. Okay, So let us take enclosed enclosure. Let us consider something like that. It is having certain specific volume and as well as some area. This is the same thing. Let us consider this one. It is having some positive charge inside it. It is having some negative charge. Okay. It is having the total surface area of, let us consider it is having S1. It is having the total surface area of S2. So obviously from our concept we know that from this closed enclosure the fill lines or the flux supposed to go out. It's supposed to go out and it's supposed to terminate into infinity if no negative charge exists close to it. And for this negative charge the fill lines will terminate, the fill lines serves to terminate. Okay. So we can say that this closed surface S1 and S2, let us consider it is enclosing some charge configuration. This S1 and S2, it is having inside it, it is having some charge configuration. It may be line charge, it may be point charge, it may be volume charge, or any combination of these two, these three. Okay. So S1, what we have been assumed that it is enclosing some positive charge which results into some flux which leaving the surface, whereas S2 it is having some negative charge which results into some flux entering in the surface, right? This S1, for this case it is enclosing some charge configuration. It may be line charge, surface charge, volume charge, or point charge. Here it results into some charge or some flux which leaves this surface or it leaves this volume. For this S2 it is having some negative charge which results into some flux lines or some fill lines are been terminating into it. Okay. So two different cases, one is positive, one is negative, but as a whole we can say either it is leaving or entering, the flux is always passing through this closed surface because we have been taking some charge configuration inside this volume. We have been taking some charge configuration inside these two volume. So either of these two cases, either it has been leaving or it is entering, we can say that it is passing through this closed surface S1 and S2. So we can say that the amount of flux leaving or entering is equals to the charge enclosed with them, right? The amount of flux leaving or entering is equals to charge enclosed within them, right? Whatever case it is, either the charges are been flux are been entering or it has been leaving, but it is depending upon the amount of flux, depending upon the amount of charge or the configuration of charge which has been enclosed within this two volume. So from here the Gauss law comes out. So what is this Gauss law? Gauss law states that the net electric flux passing through any closed surface is equal to the net charge enclosed by that surface. Gauss law. So it states that the net electric flux passing through any closed surface is equal to the net charge enclosed by that surface. That is, we can say the net flux, the net electric flux, it is denoted by psi net, something like this, which is equal to the total charge enclosed, that is Q enclosed. These two are same. Total flux passing through any closed surface is always equals to the net charge enclosed by that surface. Enclosed by that surface means within that volume what is the total charge is been kept, right? So from here the Gauss law comes out. The net electric flux passing through any closed surface is equal to the net charge enclosed by that surface. Okay. Next, what is electric flux density? Electric flux density is flux per unit area, denoted by D. It is having the unit of coulomb per meter square, right? Flux per unit area. So flux means charge itself. Flux is the charge. So let us consider we are having a sphere. Let us consider we are having a sphere. It is having, it is Z, it is X, Y, Z. So let us consider it on its surface. Let us take another strip. It is having, on this it is having the radius of A, and this outer radius is B up to this. We suppose have the charge at the origin. Let us consider. So obviously we know the surface area. Surface area for the radius A it is 4 pi A square, and for the radius B it is supposed to be 4 pi B square. Okay. So if we are taking what is the flux within the radius A, flux density within the radius A. So if we take R is equals to A, then flux density D is supposed to be flux per unit area. So Q by 4 pi A square, coulomb per meter square. If it's supposed to have the radius of B, that is for R is equals to B, then D is supposed to be Q by 4 pi B square per meter square. Okay. So if this is for the specific case that we are been taking the radius A or B, for the direction, if any arbitrary direction if we have been taking for any arbitrary radius, then for the most general case what we can write, that D is equals to Q by 4 pi R square in the direction of that radial vector, that is AR coulomb per meter square. Right. So from this what we can derive, that if we take the expression of the electric field, then it is like Q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square AR, right? So how we can relate these two? From here we can derive that D is equals to, that D is equals to, if we take this epsilon naught with E, then we are supposed to get the expression of D, that is D is equals to epsilon naught into E, the flux density and the electric field intensity. It is the relation, right? This is the expression for the electric field, this is the expression for the flux density. So what is the relation? D is equals to epsilon E. It is the most important relation. Okay. Now we have been seen, this is the Gauss law, right? Next we are supposed to see this Gauss law in some another form. So let us take an arbitrary closed surface like this, any arbitrary closed surface. It may have some area. It is any kind of arbitrary closed surface. let us consider on this arbitrary closed surface we are supposed to take some charges inside it. We are supposed to take some charges inside it, and we are supposed to find out what is the electric flux density at any point. The electric flux density at any point on this arbitrary closed surface. So for this, let us consider we are supposed to have a differential area on it, something like this, some differential area, and it is having the unit vector which is normal to this surface, ds vector. Okay. So what we have been taking, the electric flux density at any point on this closed surface is depending upon the charge configuration within this closed surface. That is what we know, right? The electric flux density, that is electric flux density or electric field, whatever electric flux, whatever it is always depending upon the charge configuration which we have been taken for this closed surface. Okay. So the differential surface element on this closed surface at any point on the closed surface, it is depending upon the physical shape. Obviously this ds, if you take the integration of this ds, we are supposed to get the total surface area. So obviously this ds will depends upon, it's supposed to have the different form or different mathematical expression depending upon the regular or irregular faces. Okay. So this ds, it is a vector differential surface element. So if we supposed to have the correct information about this ds, then we supposed to take out all the total surface value for this closed surface, right? So to find out the flux density, we must need to have the knowledge of the charges, whatever the charge we supposed to kept inside it. Okay, we supposed to have the knowledge for this. So this again, this vector differential area or this surface element at any point, whatever the point we supposed to choose, at any point it's supposed to have the correct information about the total surface area. Then only we supposed to take out from this ds what is the total surface for this closed surface, for any arbitrary closed surface. So let us consider this, on this closed surface, this flux density d, it makes an angle with this ds, because d itself is a vector, and on this surface area we supposed to have the normal vector on this surface, that is ds. So let us take these two vectors are in different direction and they have been making some angle with them. So what we have been taking, that d vector makes an angle, let us consider this alpha, with ds vector. Okay. So obviously if we are having only this ds surface element, then we also expect that a little amount of flux supposed to go out. If we have been taking the positive charges, then a little amount of flux will supposed to go out through this ds. So what we can say, that through this ds we supposed to do this, because this ds is a differential surface element. So what we can say, that a differential amount of flux is been denoted by psi. So a differential amount of flux d psi is passing through this ds. Differential amount of flux, that is flux is d psi passing through ds. Since we have been taken a differential surface area, if we are having the all the surface area, then we need to take the integration, then we can take out what is the total flux which has been leaving or it has been coming into this closed surface. Okay. So in the direction of normal to this surface, at that point is the projection of d on the ds. So what I mean to say, due to this ds we are supposed to have the flux of d psi. So if we need to take out the total flux, then we supposed to take this d psi is equals to magnitude of d, magnitude of ds, and the angle which it makes between the two vectors of this d and d psi. That is, we have been taking the dot product, that is cos of alpha. the differential amount of flux d psi is passing through ds. So what does it mean? In a direction normal to this surface, at that point is the projection of d. Just try to think. ds is the differential surface element through which differential amount of flux is passing through. So what does it mean? That in the direction normal to this surface, at that point the projection of d on the ds, so what is the amount of flux? Obviously it's supposed to, if it is on the same direction, then we can say maximum amount of flux is been going out. Let us consider it is having the positive charge inside it. So if this alpha is 0, then we are supposed to have the maximum of d psi. If this d is having this direction in the 90 degree, then we are supposed to have the least amount of flux which has been going through this ds. I am specifically talking about this ds. So obviously when we are supposed to have all of the surface, then we are supposed to get some flux any of the direction, right? So to take out the expression, what we think that what is the angle it have between the vectors of this d and this ds? It has been given by this cos alpha. So obviously if this alpha is 90 degree, in this direction, this is the alpha. If this alpha is 90 degree, then this d psi is supposed to be 0. And 0 flux is passing through this ds. I am just talking about only about this ds. We are supposed to have other surface elements also. If we are supposed to have alpha is equals to 0 degree, then we are supposed to have 0 or 180 in the reverse direction also, in the bottom side also, then we are supposed to have the maximum amount of flux passing through this ds. So if we are supposed to take 0, what does it mean? Charges are been, or the flux lines or the fluxes are going out. If I am taking 180 degree, fluxes are been coming in. So two different cases depending upon the angle. Okay, so for this case we can say maximum amount of flux passes through ds, right? So what we can say, this psi net, the total flux we supposed to have, it is depending upon the surface, the total. If we have been taking this differential surface element, then we supposed to have the d psi. If we are having the total surface element, then we supposed to have the total value of flux, that is closed surface integral d dot ds, dot product. We are taking the dot product because it's supposed to have the dependency on the same direction. It is having the dependency on the direction. So if we are having only this d psi, then d dot ds. If we need to take out all of the surface, then we are supposed to take the closed surface integral. So which is equals to this total flux. It is the total flux. It is again depending upon the charge enclosed, that is q enclosed. So this is known as Gauss law in integral form, and this is the normal Gauss law. This is Gauss law in integral form. Fine. So depending upon surface area, we are supposed to have the flux density. Depending upon the surface area, it is having the flux density. Either if we have been taking the small area or we are taking the total area, that area will decide how much flux it's supposed to have. Clear? Now we are supposed to use all the theorems, whatever I said, Stokes theorem, divergence theorems, all those things we are supposed to use. Now let us consider the close. Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
There should be a arrow mark above the d, right?
Right. It is vector only. It is vector. No need to. You know, that's why I am just keeping. Always d is vector. So let us consider next case. This closed surface is enclosing a volume charge distribution of rho v coulomb per meter cube. This ds is enclosing some volume charge distribution. That is, we supposed to have q enclosed is volume integration rho v dv, right? So this q enclosed is surface integral, right? So we can put this q and can be replaced by this expression, that is closed surface integral d dot ds is equals to rho v dv. So here we supposed to use the divergence theorem. We supposed to use the divergence theorem. So what does it mean? Divergence theorem always relates volume integration with surface integration. A dot ds is there, then we can write that it is having the divergence of A within that volume. Means we are having some vector inside an closed surface, then we are supposed to take the divergence of that vector. Divergence means what? Diverging out. Always just thinks with this word divergence means diverging out. So if an volume is been enclosed, then we can say what is the divergence of that vector within that closed volume, within that closed surface. So you just go with the divergence theorem. On that book it is quite elaborately it has been written. So we can apply this divergence theorem here. So this closed surface integration can be replaced by this divergence. So from here we can come with the expression that volume integration del dot A dv. It is not A, for this case it is supposed to del dot D. Volume integral rho v dv. So both side volume integration can be cancelled. Then we are supposed to have this del dot D is rho v. Both of them are vector. So this one is known as Gauss law in point form or Gauss divergence theorem. Gauss law in point form or Gauss divergence theorem. Or it is also known as Maxwell's first equation. So it's supposed to have, because del is having different expression for the different coordinate system, just writing coordinate system, what is the expression for this? Del dot D. It is on the Cartesian coordinate system. Then on the cylindrical coordinate system. Then on the spherical coordinate system. So on the Cartesian coordinate system it is having xyz, on the cylindrical coordinate system it is having rho phi z, on the spherical it is supposed to be r theta phi. Okay. So this is the expression. Most probably you know what is the relation between this electric field intensity and the electric potential difference, right? V is equals to minus E dot dl. So from this concept that V is equals to E dot dl, from that concept we are supposed to have another Maxwell's equation. So there is a concept called conservative nature of electric field. So conservative nature means, let us consider the electric field is always points on, let us consider this electric some charges have been enclosed in a sphere. In the sphere this some charge configuration is enclosed. So obviously let us consider either it is positive or negative, the fluxes or the field lines are always points in the radial direction. It's supposed to have the either it is leaving or entering that closed surface, that is the sphere. It's supposed to points always in the radial direction. Okay, so this electric field is always depends on the R component. If we have been considering a sphere, it is always depending upon the R component. It is not at all depending upon the theta and phi component. Most probably you know the configuration, the direction of theta and phi. If we are taking this spherical coordinate system, yes, x, y, z, this is the angle, it is phi. The angle between x and y, it is known as phi. The angle between y and z, it is known as theta. So any point, let us consider a point that is given by r, theta and phi. This point on the 3D space, just try to think this point on the 3D space somewhere like this. So this point, it's supposed to have some specific radius, it's supposed to have some rotation. If we take the projection on this xy plane, so we can take out the value of this phi. If we supposed to have this value, then we can take out the value of theta also. So any point on the 3D space for the spherical coordinate system can be have three coordinate, that is r, theta, phi. R is the value, that is the radius, then theta is the projection, is the angle from the z axis, and if we are having the projection of that vector on the xy plane, then the value of phi we are supposed to take out to have the existence of this point P. So let us consider we are supposed to have some point charges inside a sphere. So that point charge, either it is positive or negative, all the fluxes are been going out or comes in. So we can say that it's supposed to have the unit vectors which is in the direction of this radius. So if we supposed to take out this unit vector, it is AR, then it's supposed to have this A theta, then it is in this direction, it's supposed to have the A phi. So what does it mean? We supposed to have the dependency of this flux lines only on this radial vector I, R. Why? Because it can have the any direction. It can have any direction. It may have A theta or A phi. It may have any direction. So we can say that the dependency of this electric field lines are on the radial vector only, and it is independent of theta and phi. So we can say that it is having some independence on the direction. So that's why also it is known as conservative in nature. Conservative, something like that. Let us consider if you are on a metallic surface. Let us consider it is the some kind of metallic surface. It is an perfect conductor. So what is the work done on moving a charge from point A to B? Because this metallic surface is having the zero potential difference, right? So obviously work done will completely zero, because what is the expression of work done? It is minus Q on this closed line E dot dl, right? Isn't it? So over the closed path, if we have been starting this journey from A to B and again coming to A, so obviously this closed path is having the zero work done, and due to that we supposed to have the potential difference between this point VAB is zero, or we can say since the potential difference on this metallic surface, that is the perfect conductor, since it is zero, then we can say that it's supposed to have the work done is equals to, because this VAB is having the expression of closed line integral E dot dl. So if E dot dl is 0, so obviously work done is completely 0. So since for the electrostatic case, the electrostatic means charges are static in nature, they are not at all in movement. So for that case we can say that the electric field are conservative in nature, means since the work done is 0, so we can say that on movement of the charges from one point to another point there is no work done, there is no loss of charges, there is no loss of power, you can say something like that, because we need to take some power for doing the work. So since there is no work done exists for the equipotential surface, since it is known as an conservative field, electric field or electrostatic field is known as conservative in nature, it is known as conservative in nature. So it is one of the very important concept to remember. So depending upon this concept we are supposed to have the relation between this electric field and the potential. Let us consider relation between E and V, that is also a Maxwell's equation, so we are supposed to find out that. So the work done over a closed path, that is, so work done obviously in the opposite direction to the force, right? So to keep a charge in same static position, let us consider if we supposed to take this charge at this location A, so obviously if the force is acting in this direction we need to do the work in the opposite direction to keep it in the same position. So it's supposed to have the minus q closed line integral E dot dl, which is equals to 0, since E dot dl is 0. Okay, so this implies that no net work is done in moving a charge along a closed path. No net work is done in moving a charge along a closed path in electrostatic field. We must need to mention this electrostatic field. So here if we apply the Stokes theorem, applying Stokes theorem to this equation, so Stokes theorem is always having the relation with closed line integral with surface integral, that is closed line integral E dot dl is open surface integral, it is not at all closed surface, it is open surface integral curl of that vector dot ds. So this E dot dl is for this electrostatic field. So what we can say, del cross E is equals to 0, del cross E is equals to 0, that is curl of E for the electrostatic case is completely 0. So there is no curl of E, there is no rotation of electric field in the electrostatic case, that is known as Maxwell's equation. Maxwell's equation. Okay, so this is another Maxwell's equation. So how we are been taking that for the electrostatic case, electric field is acting as a conservative field, there is no net work done in moving a charge along a closed path, because for this case this point is having the same potential and this point is having the same potential. A and B is having the same potential. There is no potential difference on a perfect conducting surface. Let us consider a metallic surface. So for those surface, if the charges are having the same values, then there is no net work done. So we can say that there is no rotation of electric field. What is the electric field here? The same electric field has been coming to this point. If we have been taking the electric field from A to B and B to A are the same electric field. So what is the difference? Difference is completely zero. So there is no rotation of electric field. There is no rotation of electric field. So from this we can take out the relation between this. Just 10 minutes I will complete. So let us take, it is x, y and z. On this let us consider 2 points M and N. It is M, it is N. So it's supposed to have the coordinates x, y, z. It's supposed to have the coordinates x plus dx, y plus dy, comma z plus dz. This is the dl, the difference between this. So what is this dl? dl is dx ax, dy ay plus dz az. So for some charge configuration, let us consider we supposed to have the potential function. For some charge configuration, let us say some potential function has been given by v is equals to x comma y. V is x comma y comma z. So potential at point this M is different from the point N. Some potential difference exists. That potential difference is, let us consider dV. That potential difference is dV. The potential at point M is obviously different from the point N because they have been locating at different direction, right? So from the, what will be the expression for this dV? What we can write from the calculus, from the theory of the calculus of the multivariable. If we have been considering the calculus of multivariable, then we can write differential equation something like that. For the multivariables, del v del y dy plus del v del z dz. And what is the expression of this gradient of v? Del v, it is the gradient. Without dot it is called gradient. So it is having del v by del x ax, del v by del y ay plus del v by del z az. So if you take the dot product between this del v and this dl, if you take the dot product between these two, del v dot dl, so obviously the same unit vectors will have the value. So we can take this ax is 1, ay is 1, az is 1. So we can take out del v by del x dx, right? This one plus del v by del y or dy plus del v by del z dz. So which is equals to, this one is equals to this dv. It is equals to this dv. So del v dot dl is dv. This is the thing which we have been derived from this. So dv is del v dot dl, this one, right? Next, what we know, v is minus e dot dl, right? So what will be the dv for this case? Minus e dot dl, right? From this obviously we can write dv is differential amount of potential difference is e dot dl within the differential line. So if we compare these two equation, what we can write, that minus e dot dl is del v dot dl, or we can write E is equals to minus of del v. E is minus of del v. So what does it mean? Electric field is the negative gradient of scalar electric potential. E is negative gradient. Gradient is, you can say gradient is differential amount of increasing of any vector quantity. or spatial value of increasing any vector quantity. Means let us consider a vector quantity is now at x, if at some another time it's supposed to be x plus d. So what we can say, that vector quantity is increasing, it has been moving, so that is known as gradient. So E is negative gradient of scalar electric potential function. Okay, so after this we have been concluding for today.